Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zack, and today I am driving a 1991 Chevy Caprice Wagon. Up front is a 5.0 liter V8, and down below is a 4-speed automatic transmission. Now, I am super excited to be driving this Chevy Caprice for two reasons. First of all, I always love featuring older GM products here on the channel. They seem to be somewhat of a sweet spot for me. I always enjoy them, and so I said yes to this Caprice. But the second reason is the fact that I've also driven the Buick Roadmaster, and that video will be out today as well. So no wait time. After you watch this one, you could head on over to the Roadmaster, or thank you for coming over from the Roadmaster video after watching that. This is the Everyman's version of the Roadmaster, and so I'm excited to share that with you today. But if you would like to submit your own vehicle, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form. It takes under a minute to fill out, and I come out to you. But let's get back to that 5-liter V8 under the hood. Well, that is where the differences between this and the Roadmaster really start. The Roadmaster got the 5.7-liter LT engine. This gets the smaller 5-liter. This was also found in the Camaro at the time, and it's okay. I'll put the horsepower numbers on the screen. I don't have them in front of me right now, but it does offer that very nice V8 experience where it is sort of the low and slow, but it has that grumble, and it has a lot of torque for around town, which is definitely a nice thing to have. Like I said, paired to it is an automatic transmission. You could not find these in manual, unfortunately, but it's a more relaxed vehicle, so that's what I would expect. And last but not least, the Caprice Wagon is rear-wheel drive. So how does it feel to drive the Caprice Wagon? Well, much like the Roadmaster, it floats over bumps in a very comfortable manner. I don't really feel much difference between the Roadmaster's suspension and the Caprice's suspension, which is a really good thing because that means you could save money buying yourself a Caprice, but still get that good driving experience. Visibility is also really good, one of the big perks of the Caprice. Steering is nice and light, and so this is really an old school feel, which I think a lot of buyers were looking for at the time because there have been so many changes throughout the 80s. With that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have completely analog gauges. Off to the left is my fuel, in the center is my speedometer, and off to the right is my coolant temperature. On the steering wheel, it just says Chevrolet, and we get the horn buttons, but that's it. Off to the left, we do have some warning lights up top, our headlight and parking light switches, as well as our dimmer switch, climate vent, and moving on to the door, we get our power mirrors, power locks, and power windows. No concert sound to here. No seat adjustments found here. Very basic. Moving into the center, we get even more warning lights off to the left, an aftermarket radio in the center, and our rear wiper / rear window release found to the far right. Now, this was later moved off to the left for later model vehicles, but this is a 1991, so it is early on. Down below, speaking of basic necessities, we have 2 climate vents and the climate controls. I don't think they knew what to do with all the extra space left by not having dual zone digital climate, so they just wrote Climate Control Center in size 1000 font. I guess that's a way to handle it. Then we do have a pull-out tray that contains a very small cup holder, so we'll do a big friggin' bottle test. However, very predictably, it fails. Wah, wah, wah. And then we also have a pull-out ashtray and cigarette lighter, of course, because this is the 90s. The Caprice Wagon does still retain that nice bench seat, and the seats are incredibly comfortable. Big fan of these seats. I've been a big fan of these seats for a long time, and I've been a big fan of GM seats in this era. So they really knock it out of the park with this one, so the Caprice is no different. However, speaking of seats, we do have back seats, so let's go do a backseat review. All right, so we're in the back of the 1991 Chevy Caprice Wagon, and a couple of things to note. First of all, don't have really any amenities back here. I have power windows, which was nice to see and definitely wasn't the standard in 1991, but becoming more popular. I do have the same comfy seats that we found up front, same material, but other than that, really, I mean, okay, coming from a Buick Roadmaster, this feels very bare bones and very basic. It's not to say it's not a nice car. It's not to say that these seats aren't comfy or anything like that, but when compared to the Roadmaster, this is definitely lacking. So let's hop into the very back and talk about some fun things back there. All right, we're on the back of the Caprice. ABS right there in case you forgot. But come in here, pull this up, and we can pop just the rear window up. Are you going to play nice today? You will. Okay, so the rear struts actually do still work, and I love the fact that you can open this up and access things just through the rear window. So, just like the Roadmaster, however, this does have the split tailgate. As you can see, the two different designs here. So, press this, fold it down like a tailgate, very traditional. However, as something that will become popular on SUVs, pull this handle, and now you can open it like a traditional door. So very, very cool to see that. Once we are in here, we do have this that we can open up, and we do have, I was trying to pull it up. You have to push this release here. There you go. That pops up, and then you have your rear-facing third row seat. So that feature was not exclusive to the Roadmaster. I think the Roadmaster made it more popular, but you do get a third rear-facing row here in the Caprice, which is so, so cool, so retro, and something you don't see anymore. Is it safe? Judging by the fact that 90% of accidents are from the back, you know, whatever, not really. But you do get some cool storage around it, and you get a very cool experience sitting in the back of the Caprice. So very, very cool to see that. You can come around here, close this door up like that, pull the glass down, and you are on your way. Now we gotta talk about the looks, and I actually really like the look of this Caprice wagon. This is what's known as the bubble Caprice, because Caprices before this were very square body vehicles, and so this is not only the bigger B body platform, but it also was bubbly, so B, bubble, kind of worked. I like the look of it. I especially like the wire wheels, something you definitely don't see much of anymore, so it's cool to see that. With all of that being said, let's get on to my final thoughts. What do I think driving a Chevy Caprice wagon after having just driven the Buick Roadmaster? Well, these cars are very similar, but also very different. And I wasn't expecting that. I genuinely thought the Roadmaster was just kind of some added trim pieces and call it a day. But no, this doesn't have the adjustable seats or the concert sound. This has a lot worse of a climate control center. It doesn't have the bubble sunroof, doesn't have the wood grain down the side. And so if you are cross-shopping these this day and age, I don't know why you would, but if you are, the Roadmaster is definitely going to be the better vehicle. However, both of these cars, the Roadmaster and the Caprice wagon, both suffered the same fate. Wagons were phased out throughout the 90s, while minivans took their place, and then later SUVs on top of that. And so I've been digging into this era more and more and wondering why that is, trying to figure out that question with every 90s and 80s wagon that I drive. And the conclusion I'm currently testing out, the theory, and it's not really a theory, it is backed up by fact. In the 1970s, the government started cracking down on vehicles to have strict emissions laws. Cars were split into two categories: passenger vehicles and light trucks. Light trucks were pickup trucks, and so they didn't really have to conform to many rules. But passenger vehicles, like this station wagon, like the sedan, like the coupe, like the convertibles, they had to stick to arbitrary mile per gallon numbers that Congress just made up. They're like, oh, yeah, you have to get X miles per gallon in the next couple of years. They didn't consult anyone. They didn't ask anyone like they did with the light trucks. The light truck fuel economy standards were actually set by a group of researchers who found it feasible that within a decade they could move up to the certain number. So cars got cracked down on really, really hard. And so manufacturers didn't want to deal with these new legislations. So they found ways around it. They started categorizing SUVs as light trucks because they were built on light truck frames. They didn't have to stick to the hard emission laws. The minivan was able to slip into the light truck category because one of the stipulations was that behind the front row of seats, the ground had to be completely flat, like in a pickup truck. However, the minivan also followed that rule, so it was able to slide in. The station wagon wasn't. There was no way that GM or any other brand could bend the rules enough to make this car a light truck and thus not have to meet the new fuel economy requirements. This was right in the middle of the crosshairs, and there was nothing they could do about it. So it took the brunt of that. They had to develop more fuel-efficient engines. They had to streamline them. They had to make them curvy because the previous box-shaped vehicles just weren't aerodynamic enough to meet those MPG requirements. And so by the 90s, car makers were tired. They were tired of trying to make this style of car work when SUVs and minivans were just so much easier. They always say electricity is lazy and it'll jump where it needs to jump. Car makers are the same way. And while people still liked wagons, people still enjoyed wagons while they were still the family vehicles, they just couldn't keep up with the government requirements. And so, after this generation of Caprice, they called it Dunzo. And they actually got rid of the Caprice name as well. It wouldn't make a resurgence until the late 2000s with the government issue only rear-wheel drive Holden-based Caprice. But that's a story for another day and story for another video. This car endured a lot of governmental crackdown, a lot of scrutiny, a lot of research, and a lot of attempts to keep them afloat. But at the end of the day, wagons just aren't sustainable like SUVs and minivans are under the government's watch, and so they go away. That's why I was so excited to drive this Caprice wagon, because it isn't something that we see anymore, and it has such a storied past in the automotive space. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to Jacob and Mike for letting me take out their Caprice wagon. This was so cool. I was so excited to drive this thing. I think this thing is awesome, and I hope that you do too. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.